Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Be That 1% podcast. Today, you guys already know my amazing, beautiful wife, Amanda. She's coming back into the studio today. So a couple episodes ago, you may remember we recorded a episode all on our relationships and kind of the things that we've experienced in our relationship. And it's been met with some really good feedback. People have found a lot of value from that conversation, and so they're like, "Can we get some more of that?" And so Amanda and I the other night sat down on our couch and started thinking about, what do people struggle with in relationships? Like, what topics, what situations, what are hard things to talk about? And we came up with, like, I don't know,
12 different
at
things.
least. And we're like, okay, let's start with one and let's just move through these, right? So what you're listening to is the first of many conversations to come about, I wouldn't say taboo topics, but things that you don't normally talk about or are hard to talk about.
I think more hard to talk
Yeah,
about.
right.
And we decided to go with, just
straight to the jugular. We're going for connection, intimacy, and sex.
Mm-hmm.
And we have so many notes. This conversation is multi-layered, multifaceted. It's not going to be all talked about in one episode. And
nor should it.
Right. And as you listen to this, you may want to hear more about a certain thing that we cover, and we do welcome that. So send us a DM, and we'll be sure to add it to the list of things that we're going to be addressing. But today, I think our intention is really to share and first define what connection, intimacy, and sex are, and then how can you go about talking about this with your partner, with whoever you're in a relationship with, to strengthen these areas or enhance, improve, deepen these very important parts of human nature and of relationships. Yeah. So, babe, take it away.
Well, and I mean, you and I, if you had listened to that episode a few ones ago, I can't remember what number it's listed as. We just talked about how important communication is for us in our relationship, and that's something that we recommend quite significantly. And then we also talk about growth and the evolution of your relationship, and to constantly be checking in and evolving with each other and challenging each other. And so that is what helps us stay connected. That's what helps us stay connected. And so we really wanted to bring this to the table around centering of, like, having this communication and having this this dialogue. And that way you can bring it to your relationship, because we're all in relationship. That's like one of the number one thing that people talk about. It's insane. People want to talk about their relationship with you. You hear people at the gym or someone on the phone yelling to somebody else who they're with, or just talking to their friend about all of these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the more that my ears have perked about relationships in the last few weeks is insane, now that I'm, like, more attuned to it. The same way you buy a car and you start seeing your car everywhere on the freeway. Now I'm like, my ears are picking up on it. My eyesight's picking up on dynamics and body language and things. So the topic we're about to dive into is so incredibly important for a relationship you may be getting into, something that's brand new, something that's you've been in for a while, or things that are going to mature later on. And the evolution of a relationship and the dynamics and how intimacy changes and how sex changes and how to get back to who you two are together, and to strengthen that so that it doesn't weaken. Right. And that it becomes stronger and unites over time. And we can talk about the quote unquote shoulds, or the society misinterpretations about intimacy and sex and all of these things. And so that way, hopefully you can start to understand and realize, okay, yeah, we're normal. Yeah. Other people are experiencing these things, or, oh, we kind of got a gap here, or let me bring to life this certain thing in my relationship. And so that's definitely the premise of what we want to dive into today.
And so everyone knows, like, where all this information is coming from is many different areas. One is our own personal research into these areas specifically: connection, intimacy, and sex. Another part is from my own experience, having coached individuals within their relationships and hearing and supporting challenges that they face, and then also our 12-year relationship,
Yes.
stemming from 21, 22 years old all the way to now. And that in that time, kids, multiple kids, 2 kids now, building a business together. And so just pulling apart all of these layers and threads to find, okay, what's worked, what hasn't, what did work that no longer works. And it really just depends on what season you are in your life. And so listen to what resonates and then, apply what you feel is needed. By no means is everything that we talk about going to be something that resonates with you, but there is going to be a few things, I believe, that are going to help you improve your relationship in all aspects, but especially with these 3 things. So, babe,
Absolutely.
let's start with like the defining of
Connection.
yes.
Yeah, because these connection, intimacy, and sex go together, but then they have their own separation. And I think it's important to define something before we really dive into it, so we have that common ground in that foundation. So connection, as it pertains to two people, is the relationship in which a person is linked with someone else. So think about this as like uniting together as one. And the act of connecting and being able to maintain that connection. If we look at the origin of connection or connect, in Latin, it means joining together. So that's why I was saying, like, think of it as joining, uniting. Compart means together.
The CON, yeah.
Yes. And then the nectar, meaning to tie or bind together, meaning like that thing is not coming apart.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking like when you connect with your partner, you're coming to join as one, like that should be a solid foundation.
Mm-hmm.
That's not coming loose. Like when you tie something together, the intention to tie or bind something together is so that it does not come apart.
Yeah.
So that level of connection. So I've got my little notes. So you may be hearing paper coming to and from. And then we've got even deeper on connection is the different types of connection, which I'd love to jump into a little bit too before we go on to intimacy, is emotional connection. Because you can be in a relationship with someone and say, yeah, we're connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
We share the same last name, or we share a title with each other, fiance, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whichever your title may be. But you may not feel emotionally connected or emotionally supported with that person.
Right.
So when I say emotional connection, what comes up for you within that?
An agreement or some sort of similarity that the other person, that people share together, like,
Mm-hmm.
and then an understanding of both parties. Like person A understands B and B understands A, what drives them, who they are, what they care about, their desires. Like there's emotional, there's juice there,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a care there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think about.
I put in here, like when I was kind of deep diving into this, was like a deep soul level, a connection of feeling secure. When like you feel that emotional connection with someone, like you're in alignment with each other, you're kind of vibrating on that same wavelength,
Mm-hmm.
same energy frequency. And that, I think, is where intimacy comes in, is that you feel intimately connected with that person because there's that emotional connection and that emotional security
Mm-hmm.
with them that feels that safeness.
Yeah. And I think connection can come in many different ways. If we just take marriage out for a second and we talk about an early relationship,
Mm-hmm.
there can be a physical attraction that both parties can have that can create a connection.
Mm-hmm.
There can be a similar style, maybe an appearance of clothing or even the same language. If 2 people meet in Europe and both speak English and they're both from America, that can be a connection. There's many ways that connection
Mm-hmm.
can come. And let's say that that's the first layer to depth, right? And then as that conversation continues, and intimacy can definitely happen within moments,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how connected those people are. But then from connection, then goes into the intimacy, and there's many facets of intimacy. But then within the intimacy, that's where the sex can come in as a part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, when you talk about the different frameworks of connection,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the physical attraction, I believe is for the most part of why couples get together in the beginning, but what keeps them staying together past the first month or past the first year? Is it that emotional connection, do you believe, that creates that level of intimacy to where they really feel seen and heard and supported? Because the attraction only lasts so long, that infatuation period of like, oh my God, we're having the greatest sex, or I feel like great with this person. It's really fun. And then what gets people over the hump for whether they're like, okay, we fizzle out or we stay together?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I still think that you're the most beautiful woman in the world. So that attraction has never gone away. But our relationship and the unfolding of who we have become together, that creates much more rich history. You know, it's like this woman knows me through 12 years of my life. A third of my life has been spent with you. And in that third, so many milestones have been reached, failures have been experienced, and you've been there the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, so there's trust there. There's you see me more than any other person, right? So there's something special and unique to that. And I had to be open to that. But then you also met that openness with a willingness to want to understand and be there. And so, yeah, I think without that emotional connection and even that intimacy of talking about our problems and talking about our dreams and our visions and communicating regularly as those things change, that's what creates the strong connection and the intimacy, which, you know, leads to sex, which we'll get to, but really just the this person loves me.
Yeah.
Truly. You know, whoever this person, but in this case, you.
Yeah.
Right.
Something that is popping up for me is the level of authenticity in that connection. For you to feel like you can be yourself and let down those walls. I mean, you can define that as intimate parts of yourself where you're expressing that vulnerability. But when you feel safe with someone, I believe it's because you've made that emotional, deeper level of connection than the surface level. Like you've went from attraction to now coming to an emotional securityness, which then lets you be able to let down those walls to reveal some of your most authentic pieces of yourself.
Yes.
To really feel seen, so that not feel seen, but allow yourself to be seen by that other person. And I think that's what will be able to let that level of real, I don't want to say real hardcore intimacy, but like just real vulnerable intimacy through the door. Because I think a lot of people think intimacy is sex, but there's so many levels and frameworks of intimacy.
There are. And even before that, like I don't think you can get to intimacy if you lie. Both parties.
Well, maybe the other person doesn't know you're lying,
that's
but
what I'm saying.
You
exactly
know that that's not your truest self.
Right.
And so you're not fully revealing something. And I think this happens a lot when you're dating.
100%. That's what I was saying. Like what I was thinking is like, oftentimes when you meet someone that you're really attracted to, that maybe this is the most attractive person that you've been able to, you know, come into contact with, or maybe you have been single for so long that you just want a relationship so bad that you project an image that isn't you to try and get someone to say yes or date you or whatever. That can be very easy to do. And so in the act of not telling the truth, which is a form of lying, or just blatantly lying, saying that you have a degree, you have money, you lived here when you didn't, like that kind of stuff, to build status, then you build a connection on faulty foundation.
Yep.
Right? And then this is going to just eat you alive the whole relationship, because you're going to have to keep that up. And so one of two things is going to happen. Either it's going to get so heavy that you can't carry it anymore and you're going to end the relationship and it's going to be bad for both parties, or they're going to find out and it's going to be worse. So either way, it ends in destruction.
Yeah.
And so, but in telling the truth is the courage to be vulnerable. And it's really hard, especially if you've been burned in the past, especially if you've been honest and it hasn't been received well, or you want something so bad that you're afraid if you do tell the truth, it won't end the way that you want it to end. And so you don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got to ask yourself, what type of relationship do you want? Because the ones that last are the ones that establish that deep level of intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's both frightening and freeing at the same time, because you no longer have to be someone you're not.
Mm-hmm.
But in the not being something that you're not, you can risk not being with that person. It's a hard choice.
It is, especially because people are craving intimacy, or they're craving connection in a world that feels very disconnected, especially through social media. And now we're getting into AI, and we're getting into dating app. Like, there's just so many things to where it's like intangible connection. It's not like you can feel that other person across from you. And so it's very easy to put on a persona or wear a mask to hook that person into dating you for a long time, because you don't want to be by yourself. You don't want to be lonely. So hiding certain aspects of yourself, it's not that maybe you're lying per se, but you're hiding certain things and not revealing them totally, or you're going along with what they want when it's really not something that you want, or you lie to yourself and think, if I do this thing, then maybe later down the road, like, I can reveal this real part, or if we get over this, then things will get better.
Right.
But then it's not that level of authenticity that I was talking about earlier, of that like deep-rooted connection that really, really allows those vulnerable parts of yourself to be exposed to create intimacy.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why people don't stay together, is because that either they feel like they've been lied to, or the other person just hasn't revealed their full selves. And once they're like trapped in a marriage, they feel, let's say, then they're like, oh my gosh, I have to keep this up forever.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's frightening. Me thinking about that right now, if I could never be my full self with you, that would be like suffocating.
Yeah, you're always carrying armor.
And I don't think that people think long-term when they first start dating, of like, what's the intention for this relationship? At least not in your early 20s. Maybe in your later 20s, when you've got your career dialed in, you've put a lot of like your goals, or traveling and stuff is, starting to come in. But then once you're 30s, 40s, you've had kids, or you're divorced, and now you're on to this next relationship. It's like, get rid of all the BS. Let's connect. But when you're younger, I feel like it's very easy to hide some of those things.
And some of them you don't know.
And you don't realize. And then some people may be doing it consciously.
Yeah.
Or they look back and they're like, oh shoot, I really didn't reveal that right. part of myself. But in the beginning, we're not really thinking about, well, what is the intention for dating this person right now? Do I want to be wasting time? Because when you're younger, you don't think about wasting time.
No.
You're in the moment, you're having fun. We'll see where this goes. And so I think when you're younger, it's easier to hide aspects of yourself. And then when you're older, you're like, I don't have this time.
Right.
I don't want to date someone if like this isn't going to go anywhere. So how can I make sure that this is an emotional connection that is authentic, to where I can create a life with this person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because the energy and the time that it takes to upkeep a relationship,
it's a lot.
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
I forget, someone was saying on a podcast I was listening to, I think it was Chris Williamson on the Diary of a CEO podcast. He was saying something like, if you decide to get into a relationship, you have to be willing to sacrifice at least 2 friends, at least close friends, because of the time that it takes to keep that relationship strong. Doesn't mean you can't have those friends. It's just going to mean that it's going to take a hit. You're going to not be as available. You're not going to be able to go out on those trips that you always did, or go out to the bars like maybe you did one time, or or when they extend invitations, you're not going to be saying yes to all those. And that's the sacrifice. Everything in life has a sacrifice, and one of the sacrifices of many of having a healthy relationship is, one, being honest. That doesn't mean you word vomit on the person the first date, but it also means you don't hide anything either.
Yeah.
And then also just recognizing, like, this is going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort. I'm going to be triggered a lot. But the point is, if I want a strong relationship, I have to be able to communicate these things. And it's going to be messy. And I might say something that I didn't mean, but that's how you know where the line is.
Yeah.
Right. And as long as both parties understand that that's the most important piece of like an ongoing conversation that never ends, like life,
Never.
then you're off to a good start. That
Yeah.
doesn't guarantee success, but you're off to a really good start.
Yes. And then that kind of like stems into now that level of intimacy. If like you've decided, okay, this is a relationship, the intention is I want to be my full self with this person. And I'm willing to go through not the heartache, but the pain, like the sacrifice of this. I'm willing to endure some of these vulnerable aspects because the reward is so much higher. You talk about like the pain versus pleasure. A lot of people want like this small little pain, so then they're more pleasureful in the moment, so they'll hide things where your pain is higher now so that your pleasure is higher later. The reward is bigger. And if you are now in a relationship to where, or you want to be in a relationship where that intention is to be together for a long time, or at least like you're like, this is it. I want to make this work. I feel the attraction to them. I feel emotionally connected. I feel like we're being authentic. Let's take it to the next level. When someone takes it to the next level and that vulnerability is really expressed, what
before we go there,
okay,
the intimacy piece, are we talking about like an actual relationship, like boyfriend, girlfriend, transitioning into engagement into marriage, or are we also talking about friendships? Because I think friendships can have connection and intimacy, but no sex, right? So which one are we talking about?
I think for this case, in all intents and purposes, we're talking about a romantic relationship. Because yes, friendships can have levels of intimacy, and that's where in the beginning we talked about the importance of defining intimacy, because it can be misconstrued as sex, but it's not.
Right.
So for this case, romantic relationship.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think that's kind of what I mapped out a little bit more. So for me, how I kind of started defining intimacy was like the closeness between two connected people, that togetherness, creating that affinity bond, that affection, that you feel fully seen, fully supported, you're emotionally connected, and you've decided to share this life together.
Yes.
Romantically.
Yeah. Yes. And when you also agree to that and the truth telling of who you both are together, there's no way of predicting what's going to happen. And that's part of the surrender that I think people need to understand when telling the truth or when being vulnerable and courageous and in an attempt to establish that intimacy is you're not going to be able to predict it, which I think is why people are so terrified. They're like, I want to know that if I'm vulnerable and I attempt to establish this intimacy, that everything's going to be okay. I can't tell you that for certain. That's part of the leap. But what I do know and what I have learned is that when you take that leap, it brings a level of aliveness that nothing else can bring.
Yeah.
It's where two parties can now co-create something completely new in the moment together. And then whatever gets created will then create the next moment and the next moment. But it's a jump.
Yeah. What would you say? I have some things written down myself, but what would you say are some intimate acts? So if we're going to put intimacy into action to create intimacy together, what are some things, sex being an obvious one,
sure,
or any interaction of sex in general is one around physical, right? Intimacy. But what are some other acts of intimacy?
Well, I guess acts, I'm thinking of like things to talk about. I think sharing your goals and your dreams, your fears, your insecurities, and expressing your needs, what you're looking for in this relationship, what you want from the other person. That's hard to say for most people. And so I think those are really great places to start. It's like, why are we building this relationship? if I don't tell you what I want and you don't tell me what you want, we're both going to assume based on our own realities what the other person wants that they may not want.
Mm-hmm.
So I want from this relationship, I want to build a business together. I want to live over here. I want to have X amount of kids. I want to that. That's real. That's the first place to start.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's an agreement that that's the next step to take.
Yeah.
But until then, it's like we're just shooting in the dark, and we may have some sex here and there, but like, where's the direction of the relationship? How do we know if we're succeeding?
And sex isn't always intimate.
No.
Nor is it connected.
No.
That's why it's funny, because these three things are interconnected, but they can also be, I don't know what the opposite of interconnected is, disconnected.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I someone said this one time, I was like, oh my gosh, that is something that I think I know I've done in the past, but like, just you're basically masturbating with the other person's body.
Mm.
And I was like, that's how disconnected it can be.
Yeah.
If you don't do these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just empty.
Yeah.
Like it feels pleasureful, I guess, but immediately filled with emptiness, which I think is worse.
Well, because the other person, mainly, it tends to be the woman feels like they should
what?
Have sex with their partner because they're in a relationship. And not a lot of people talk about the things that we're talking about right now, or create the time and space to talk. Like we just talked about in our previous relationship episode, how important it is to be constantly checking in with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get in this cycle of, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or this is just the rite of passage. I need to be doing these things. Oh, okay, it's 2 weeks or it's a month, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, showing them I'm, still giving a little bit, it's so disconnected.
Right.
Just because you're performing the act of sex doesn't mean that it's connected and intimate together, and that you're truly in it together.
Right. Like, sex done right is vulnerable, is intimate, is connected. It's like all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all of it, which makes it transcend the physical. It's more than just the actual act. It's the emotion behind the act. It's the story behind it. It's the feeling of the connection that makes it bigger than it is. So it's like multi-dimensional orgasmic. You're hitting all the levels, right? And yeah, I mean, I've definitely felt that for sure.
Yeah.
On all levels, and it's fantastic. And I only hope that people out there get to experience that.
From the research that I have dove into, and the different sex therapists and experts around sex, is that the majority of women have never had an orgasm before. Either it's the shame to talk about it, the pressure to have one, so they fake one, the uncomfortability to talk about it, the uncomfortability to explore, to understand what they want and what they like. Is that I think intimacy is twofolded. It's the intimacy with yourself that you allow with yourself, because if you can't be intimate with yourself and allow yourself to have some sort of authentic connection, which really is self-love.
I was going to say, is that acceptance of self and love of self.
Then how can you truly be intimate with your partner?
True. I mean, and if you're not, then you're going to expect the other person, you're going to expect more from the other person than you should.
To overcompensate these issues. And I think there's like major red flags in a relationship when there's lack of trust. When there's constant asking of, how am I looking? How am I this? Like, just overly checking in. I think those are pretty big red flags when someone's insecure about themselves, as they become like overly dependent on you for a lot of different things. And then it almost feels like they don't trust you. It's just like
and that can be a turnoff. And then you don't have sex, and then it's like, well, you don't like me. And it's like, no, I just don't want to keep telling you things that I've already told you 1,000, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that the level of intimacy and self-love that you have with yourself is the biggest foundational piece you can have as a person to then be able to have an authentic connection with someone else.
Do you think that having sex in the way that we're talking about it, all encompassing the intimacy, the connection, the actual act of it, do you think that that is a selfish pursuit? Do you think it's a selfless pursuit? Do you think it's a mixture of both? Like, how do you view that? Is it
It's
like service? Is it?
I think it requires selfishness, because you would be doing a disservice to yourself for not exploring these things and having a level of intimacy with yourself and a level of connection with yourself and being self-aware. You are doing a disservice to yourself because this is your life
Yeah.
through your own eyes and your own body. Why would you want to be disconnected from that? Why would you not want to be wholeheartedly you
Yeah.
and wholeheartedly understand who you are, what your body's capable of, what fills you up, what's pleasureful, what are your desires, all of these things, and be able to answer all of those things. So then in turn, you can have a relationship with someone, because we're all on this planet to be connected. There's no wonder why procreation is part of who we are. It's evolutionary built into us to have sex, to have that, to make more babies, but at a more even depth of the human experience is the emotional side of it and the relationship based side of it, that we're supposed to be in relationship with each other and have this like deeper intellectual experience with ourselves and with each other. So I feel like, yes, it's selfish because you would be doing a disservice to your own human experience. And why would you, with your time on earth, when every day is not guaranteed, be robbing yourself of a full life well lived? To have disconnection, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. If someone came to you and was like, here's what a disconnected life looks like, do you want to live this?
Right.
No. So I think you have to have that selfishness first, and to take that time for you instead of hopping from one relationship to another. Even if you're in a relationship, go take a little self trip. It could be 24 hours, it could be 48 hours, it could be a week, whatever, to get connected to you and maybe just rejuvenate, do some inner work, take some time to yourself. Then you can reset and come back to your relationship and your partner and just be like, okay, I really want to be intentional about this.
Yeah.
And here's some foundational pieces that I think will really help us grow and evolve.
We may need to talk about how people can have that conversation before they leave.
I know. And we've had this each ourselves. It's so important to go on your own self-discovery journey and to be your own person before you can be in a relationship with someone else.
That's right. And even before you become a parent. That's another layer, right?
I mean, of course, a lot of times kids come into a relationship before someone's ready, because there are times where people didn't anticipate to be a parent, and now it's kind of thrusted upon them, and everyone's doing the best they can with what they've got.
Yeah.
But it's like, now that you're starting to understand some of this about yourself, because people that listen to your podcast are growth oriented, are self-aware, have those values of like, okay, I want to learn so I can implement these things to my life. So that is, I would say, selfish. Yes.
Yeah.
So that you can better yourself and further yourself. And that way your relationships with other people are a betterment because of that.
Okay. So let's get back to the sex. What's important for people to know? So one of the things that you said is that women may not have had an orgasm in their young adult life, maybe even to mid adult life, because they've either faked it or pretended or whatever. Why is that, from what you've understood? And we could talk about that, but then also like the different types of sexual desires that people have, or sexual, what's the right word? Like styles, I guess, that people are, that we learned the other day that we had attached to what we already know. Like, talk about that a little bit.
So I will use like the analogy, kind of like money. A lot of people know that we have money stories and how you were raised and how your parents talked about money. You may have taken on some things consciously and subconsciously, and now you have your own beliefs about money, your own stories about money, and then you bring that into your own life and into your own relationship, and as you grow older and all of these things, until you take the time to kind of debunk some of those myths and are consciously aware of it and are making steps to change it. It's the same way that people have stories about sex, of what sex needs to be, should be, for women, how you need to appear in society, whether they've seen certain things like in a movie. I mean, think about what Disney portrays as like this wholesome princess goes off with her knight in shining armor, and then we're off looking for that in the real world and trying to be that picturesque thing, right? And so I think that's a lot of foundational pieces as to why some women can experience deep pleasure and orgasm and some can't. And some are very shameful to even look at themselves naked, look at, and we'll go there, even be able to see their vagina. Most women have never even seen what it looks like. For men at a very young age, we've got boys. Oakley pulls at, he's 6 months old pulling at his pee-pee. And James is like, hey, buddy. And I'm like, that's how early it starts. And we don't shame it. We're like, yeah, Aiden, that's your pee-pee. This is what, what it does. And only mommy and daddy can help you, doctors, but don't let anybody else, and they see it. For men, it's much easier to see. For women, it's not. And so because you don't see it very much and maybe you don't explore it, there becomes a lot of mystery behind it that you yourself don't know or understand. And in your own household, is sex taboo to talk about? Is it awkward? Is it something that like is there that we never discuss? Like in my household growing up, I mean, I've talked about this in different events and workshops, like very openly about how my parents taught me about sex by leaving a book on my bed. When I was like in 8th grade, I came home. I think I'm not sure what was going on in my environment at the time that cued them that they need to have the sex talk. Maybe it's just levels of puberty and I was having boyfriends. But
good cue.
Yeah. Right.
Your dad's like, you got to get on this.
Well, here's the funny part is I came home to this book on my bed that said like growing up and asking about sex. And then I'm like, okay, I open it up and like, there's certain parts that are stapled. The parts I have this book to this day. And when I was applying for grad school, because I'm going on the journey to become a licensed therapist to help people with the exact things that we're talking about right now, I went and dove into that book to see where all the unstapled chapters where the previously stapled chapters were. And they were about the male reproductive body, which is the most, for women at that age, you're not wondering about yourself. Yeah, you've got all these hormones and things are happening, but you're more wondering about the opposite sex, So those were stapled. Pregnancy, intercourse was stapled. It was more, and then also rape was stapled, which I found like very interesting of like how to know when something is appropriate and not, and like what to do after and all of those things. It was more about the anatomy of the woman that was not stapled. And of course, I spent more time on unstapling all of.
Sure.
And to this day, my parents and I have never had a conversation about that. Like I would cringe inside my body to have a conversation with my dad about sex. My sister and I have 2 younger sisters. I'm the oldest. I'm 33. My middle sister just turned 30. And then I have a youngest sister who is 20. She'll be 20 next month. We've got quite the age gap. And my sister who's 30, Amy and I were just like, we used each other to talk about like, oh my God, I wish mom and dad would have told us this or told us that. And so then we become these little like miniature parents to our sister Allie to make sure that she doesn't grow up feeling sex is so taboo or feeling certain things are wrong, or like being afraid to talk about certain things, even if it's cringeworthy on our end to, talk about it, at least she's coming to us because we never felt like we had someone we could go to.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's your foundation at a young age,
Mm-hmm.
who are you going to be as an adult when it comes to sex?
Yeah.
What are you thinking sex is going to be like? Anything that you've seen romantically in the movies. And you're like, okay, should I moan? This is where women start to fake it because they think they should. And then they may be intimately having sex or just having sex and it not being intimate. And they're like, okay, maybe I should at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he is.
Mm-hmm.
And you just fake it for so long in different relationships. And if you have different partners through the course before you meet your husband or wife, which most people do, then you're experiencing different people's bodies. And that can be challenging to know. And maybe once you've kind of figured it out, then that person's gone. Now you have to go on this other loop of discovery.
Yeah.
And you've never really taken the time to discover yourself because of the shame.
And we haven't even, I mean, it wasn't until recently that we've understood our own bodies in our relationship sexually.
Well, we've been married for almost 7 years.
Yeah.
Been together for 12. And I want to say around the time we were engaged or like right around married is where we really started to talk about sex.
Mm-hmm.
Because now we're like kind of over this certain hump. And mind you, I don't think we weren't engaged until like 5 years into our relationship too. But still it was so young. We were in our 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And those things, I'm sure your parents weren't teaching you need to sit down with your partner and talk about sex and talk about these things and what you guys like.
My mom just talked about protection.
Exactly.
And, like, be safe, but not like the inner workings.
And maybe for girls, they might have a friendship to where they can talk about some things, but they're not maybe talking about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And for men, I think having sex is more of like when you're younger, like, oh, high five. But for girls, you're hiding it.
Yeah. I would say even now, I think men look at it as like a status thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is how many girls I've slept with, how many girls I've had sex with. And it's like a pride thing.
Performance thing, pride thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for girls, it's like, or women, it's something that we kind of keep to ourselves for the most part. Unless you have established some very wholehearted, connected relationships with other people, men or women, that you feel are in your corner and that you can be vulnerable and they know like your whole depths with. Yeah. But then, and I have that with some of my girlfriends, but there's parts of our relationship that I want to keep for just us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's parts that I'll share, and we'll talk about, but there's parts of it that I just keep for just us. And I think that's important too.
Absolutely. So going back to the sex styles, you said that there were spontaneous.
I didn't say that.
Well, you didn't say, but I think that was one of the things that we were going to talk about. The spontaneous types and is it the responsive types? Is that what the other one is?
Desire. Yes.
Responsive.
Well, the podcast you sent me, do you remember the doctor he was interviewing?
I don't remember her name, but I can
think
find
you
it
should,
right here.
You should look it up so that we can give some context, especially if people want to look up her book, because she has written like 15 different books on sex education. She's not a sex therapist, but she considers herself a sex educator.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about
Tracy Cox.
Okay, Tracy Cox. She's British.
Yeah.
She's great to listen to. I don't know why I love listening to people that are British.
But she was saying that there's two different styles of sexual desire, I guess.
Especially after you've reached a year in a relationship. Because in the beginning, you've got a lot of attraction. Honeymoon phase. Intimacy really isn't that big of an issue.
Right. You're having sex everywhere.
Yes.
3 times a day. Here, there, doesn't matter.
Yes.
They're just there, right? So then spontaneous, I guess, is
2/3 of men have identified with what she calls spontaneous desire.
Which means?
They can be kind of turned on at any moment in time, whenever, ready to go. All of a sudden, your husband walks in really horny and like grabs your butt and you're just like, oh, okay, where did that come from? It didn't need to come from anywhere. Just all of a sudden was created from within him.
Yeah, that's me.
2/3 of men are spontaneous. Yes. Where 2/3 of women are what we call, or what she calls responsive desire, or stimulated, responsive stimulated. where just as the word is, it's response. Like, so your body is responding to something external from you that then creates that desire within to want to have sex or be intimate with someone.
You need to be prompted.
Yes, you need to be prompted. That blood rush, the heart palpitating is created because of some external desire. Now, this can be, she says, from your partner physically. This could be from a book that you're reading that's
50
like
Shades.
50 Shades of Grey-esque, or you're watching a movie like the show Sex Life on Netflix and you're just seeing people getting it on and you're like, oh my
left
gosh,
and right. Jesus.
and it's creating like all of these hormones happening in you that then you're like, oh my gosh, where is my partner right now? So those are the two. And she said most women are responsive. However, most men are going to be spontaneous. And then there's obviously 1/3 of men that are responsive, and and then a lot of women can be a combination of the two.
Yeah. And then she also said that 20% of 20% of the time, 80% of the time, women do not orgasm through penetration.
Yes.
And that it would be beneficial to the relationship if that was more known, so that both can enjoy that experience. Whereas men are just like one directional. We're just like, get the climax, orgasm, we're good. But women are kind of like left in the dark a lot of the times.
Yes, we are. Unless you have a partner, and now we're talking to the male-female partner dynamic. And she was very open about saying like gay couples don't necessarily experience this because they have
the same,
they understand the workings of their body more. And so she doesn't see these sexual intimacy issues as much, orgasm issues as much on same-sex couples as she sees people missing the mark where it's male and female. So when we talk about this, it's because there's more disconnection there than there is with same sex. But she definitely was talking about like how 80% of the time women may not experience an orgasm because here we go into it all of it all, right? Men don't necessarily understand the woman anatomy as well as they may think they do. Because maybe they've been growing up with women faking it for them. And they think they're the shit.
Or watching porn.
When they're not.
And
it's a freaking theater performance.
Right.
Or they see some crazy shit and they think they can act out in the bedroom. And the woman's like, what is this? That's not how we do it. And then on the flip side, women see that too and think like I need to be this when they don't want to be that. And it creates so much disconnect and connection intimately that no wonder we're experiencing lack of sex and intimacy so much. I mean, to play, there's your phone and so many virtual reality experiences and TV and other facets to have that release, so to speak, than to be actually physically intimate with your partner.
And sexlessness is on the rise. I need to find the stats, and I'm drawing a blank on what they are now, but
sexlessness now is defined by once a month, having sex once a month in your relationship or 10 times a year.
Sexlessness?
Yes. Is now defined as sex one time a month or 10 times a year. Being in a sexless relationship.
That doesn't make any sense. Isn't sexless none?
You would think, but that's how it's being defined now.
Interesting. What I'm thinking of is no sex.
Okay, so
I don't know what that term is.
That is called a platonic relationship.
Okay.
So that means you are emotionally connected with someone, and a lot of people can be in platonic relationships and then may even to the next degree give their partner the okay to have sex on the side with other people as long as they don't want, whatever. They can create their own relationships. But you see this a lot happen in older couples where the physical intimacy isn't there anymore. The sex isn't there anymore, but they still desire to stay together. They have created like this fondness and friendship and deep-rooted vulnerability and trust and have emotional connection, and they still want to be together, but the sex part isn't there. And we were talking about this last night. If like you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very true about sex. The longer you go without it, the less you desire for it. So you have to be very careful, because a lot of times relationships, it's like little by little by little, things kind of get pushed off to the side and the back burner. And before you know it, you haven't had sex in whatever is a long time for you.
Mm-hmm.
And your relationship feels so disconnected. And you're like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
It's because like you just kept putting these on the back burner,
You're not talking about it.
And then before you know it, your partner's unsatisfied and has cheated or looked elsewhere. And now they want a separation altogether because their physical needs aren't being met.
Yeah. Another thing that Tracy Cox said was like, if you're in a relationship, you got to realize a few things. One, there's like an obligation to satisfy your partner, like a commitment there sexually and in other ways. And obviously that should be reciprocated. But then also the, like if you don't do that, don't expect them to stay around. Like she said in the episode, she's like, if my husband were to tell me that I would never cheat on him, I would take that as an insult. It's like, so what? So no matter how bad you treat me, I'm just not going to do that. Like, that's just not human nature. And not to say that we're condoning any of that, but it's just like needs need to be met. But in order for them to be met, they need to be discussed.
Yeah.
And if they're going to be discussed, there's going to be a certain level of discomfort that you're just going to have to deal with.
You have to talk about sex.
Yeah.
With your partner. And we were talking about this last night too. You're going to want to know, well, how many times should we be talking about it? It's not a level of frequency. I think it's the level of just starting.
Quality.
Well, starting in the quality.
Yeah.
Have one. Maybe it's one time a year. Maybe it's 2 times a year. But the first time is going to be freaking awkward and hard and might feel giggly to talk about and be super, super transparent and very, very hard. But that's why creating a level of vulnerability and trust within your partner.
Yeah.
If you have that level of intimacy, talking about anything is going to be so much easier.
True.
And go first. Share about yourself first or your experience first, and then ask them about theirs.
Yeah.
And how can we make this better together?
And be mindful of judging the other person's answers, or else they're going to retreat, withdraw, and then you got to like start the whole process over again. That could take months.
And you might need to give it some time because maybe they've never spent the time to think about this or what you've just asked them themselves.
Right.
Like, hey, babe, what is it that you like?
I don't know. I just put it in there.
James.
But like you do need to know. And so like, so there's frequency. And then while you're having the experience, like while you're having sex, like being able to articulate even maybe before and or during, like give feedback.
And I would say the best way to give feedback is by giving positive feedback in the moment. Some people don't like being talked to. Some people may want that positive reinforcement of like, okay, babe, I like it right there. Okay, maybe, okay, now do this. And now James knows the order of sequence. And you guys, we have a great sex life.
Right.
I mean, we wouldn't be talking about this if we didn't, but and I think we need to debunk that in order to have a great sex life, you have to have sex all the time.
Yeah.
It's going to be different and evolve.
Yeah.
The frequency that we had in the beginning is not the frequency we've had after 2 kids.
Definitely not.
After I'm in 6 months postpartum now, like we've got kids that wake up during nap times and bedtimes unexpected, and then we're tired and it's exhausting and we plan to do it and then later it doesn't happen, and then it's just, it can be overwhelming and a lot, and then 2 weeks have gone by. But I think it really is the quality and the intimate connection that you're having during sex to make it great. It doesn't need to be every day, 5 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever it may be. I think we need to get that number out the window.
Yeah.
And go down to more of like, are you present with one another?
Well, I've felt that. I used to believe and think that there was a number, and I was like, the more the better, and when it wasn't that, then I would get in my head and think like, why isn't it that? And then I would never voice this to you. And so then I would become bitter and resentful. Like, why doesn't she want it as much as I do? And it just created a whole unnecessary dialogue. And I noticed that when I vocalize that, because I'm usually bring up the sex conversation in our relationship, Amanda's helped me understand, like, well, what is it that you're wanting? And then once we started learning each other's styles more so than we already had just innately and organically, then I realized that it was more about the quality than it was about the quantity, especially all the other things that we have going on in our life, like kids, like a business, like the traveling schedule that I go on. Like, there's a lot dynamics there.
Yeah.
But I wanted to speak to that, like, the holding it in part.
Mm.
Because men, speaking about men, we cannot vocalize those things and then just expect the other person to know. Like, well, you should just know that we should do it more. It's like, well,
I think that's everyone.
Okay.
Withholding
Yeah.
what it is that you're truly feeling.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to upset your other partner. You don't want them to think that you're not happy, because you might partially be pretty content in your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to make them feel bad. I think it goes both ways.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when you don't speak up or say anything, then the other person doesn't know, and they don't know that anything is a problem.
Yeah. Or the person who's not speaking up distances themselves, and then the other person feels the distance but doesn't know why there is distance. So then that person could also distance themselves too. And you just get further and further apart.
You feel it energetically start shifting.
Yeah. I've been guilty of that.
And then why would you want to have sex?
Right. So you're like creating what you don't want by not talking about it. It's insane.
And it kind of comes back to the loop of, like, some women in their mind, don't totally enjoy sex because it's the penetration part that is not as enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Because most women orgasm through their clitoris, which is a little bit on the outside, but kind of goes in a wishbone down their legs a little bit. It's I believe 10 centimeters long, where most men thinks it's like this little bitty circle on the outside that they need to, I don't know, mess with. But it's so much deeper than that. And if you deeply care about your partner, it's something that you'll want to explore more with them too. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of men think that it's just the penetration part. And the older that women get, a lot more things come into play, like pregnancy, having kids, postpartum recovery. The older you get, you don't lubricate as much too. And then for men, there's you don't get as hard either. So there's a lot of things that happen when you're aging. You're constantly having to, like, relearn your body and, like, figure out what works.
Because that's another form of vulnerability.
It really is. And it takes so much work to be vulnerable with your partner. And that's why I was saying, like, you really need to be able to be vulnerable with yourself and take the time to know yourself. So then you can express what it is that you need. You both need to be able to do this separately to be able to bring that to your relationship, to have that deep-rooted foundation, which is why I think our relationship works so well, is because we both take the time to really understand ourselves, and we both care about each other so much that we want to be able to please and have a passionate relationship in general, that I want to be able to explore you and what you need, and I want you to be able to explore me and what I need. And that there shouldn't be shame attached to it. And it is a conscious debunking of shame almost every time. Like, around the time James and I were engaged, like, we had, like, a really deep conversation because of, like, certain styles or certain sex positions I wasn't willing to explore because I felt like they were slutty. But it came out, James, like, asking me question after question after question, and it just emerged, and I didn't even know that answer or how I felt was really in there. He was almost making me really irritated and mad by, like, asking these things. And I'm sure for you, you're like, you're my fiance or you're my wife at this point. I forget the time period. Couples that have been together for a long time will understand this. I forget the time period, but I'm sure that you're like, well, we're in this together forever. Like, why are you so ashamed of this? Or why are you?
Yeah, I was like, I love your body. I want to like experience it all. I want you to have that too. I want you to surrender. I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to like just open.
Yeah.
And
somewhere deep in there had some definition of being a slut. If you strayed anything outside of what I don't even know what you call it, like your typical missionary style, or just vanilla, I guess you could say. Looking back at it, it's just probably from the way I was raised.
Yeah, you were stapling those positions.
It was the way I was raised. You just don't talk about it much, and you see stuff and they're like, no, that's a bad girl. You don't do that. And so how many of us have been ingrained back, deep rooted in there, like, no. You don't talk about that because you're a good girl.
Right.
I think we're all, for men in our society, it's like be a strong man. And for women in our society, it's be a good girl. So there's some like deep rooted norms there that then play into so many aspects of your life, and in so many aspects of your sex life too.
Yeah.
That's why I say when you're like, what's the problem here? I'm like, it's sex stories. The same way you have money stories.
Well, that just comes back to self-awareness and taking the time to understand how you are the way that you are, and scheduling time to go through those things, so that when conversations like this come up, you can explain to some degree where you're coming from, and that'll open up new doors, because the other person who hears that and if they care about you will begin asking questions, which will then force you to think about it in a different way. And then boom, there comes a piece of wisdom. You're like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And once that's out, you're so much lighter. Even if you're in a heated argument, like probably weeks ago, we were in a heated debate. Like
we high-fived each other afterwards because we were like, that was a very good, mature adult discussion.
It was definitely probably one of our most heated debates. And it's not like we were yelling, but we were like firm back and forth and like, but this and this. Well, but you think about that. And like, it was probably like 30 minutes. And we were both engaged. We were both back and forth. And afterwards, we were like, wow, thank you. And then we had sex after that. Which if you were to take those two things apart and say, you're going to have a heated debate where you're not going to agree on something, and then you're going to have sex, like those things, in my eyes, don't really go together. But because it was so real, and because the love was...
But it wasn't hate sex.
No, it wasn't.
Or like, where people are like, they're fighting, and then all of a sudden they just get like
up
super,
sex or whatever. Yeah.
Yes, like passionate about themselves. It wasn't that. It was because we had so much openness and open, honest conversation, and we're real with each other and allowed each other to express and held space for one another to share their viewpoints. And at the end, took the time to understand how one another was seeing this situation. And then I was like, babe, that was really good of us. Good job. Like we had a really healthy debate there. And like we high-fived, literally high-fived. But it was because it was so vulnerable and real. And like we were just so present with each other that I think that it heightened that passion to want to be with each other intimately.
Well, passion is created by polarity. So in that conversation, definitely polarity. But like even in relationships, polarity, like differences are what spark contrast, which creates a healthy tension that then can create an attraction. And so, yeah, it's cool that we were able to do that and then have connection in a different way. Physically, so that was a beautiful example of like emotional connection, vulnerability, and then physical connection, within an hour, 2.5 time frame,
I know you brought that up the other day. I'm like, okay, we need to give some context here. in my mind, I was like, we need to give some context here because I wasn't like a hateful. Like,
right.
Because some people can be like, get it on because of that, like conflict and kind of thing.
And everyone's going to have their flavor and their style. And hey, we're not here to judge. We're just here to say, make sure you communicate about it. So that it's intentional at least.
Yeah. I want to kind of circle back around to the attraction part as like the obligation towards one another, because I think this also falls under the line of selfishness, right?
Okay.
Of putting yourself first, understanding yourself at that level. Because I think a lot of times when someone gets into a relationship, the self-care kind of can tend to depreciate.
They get complacent or comfortable.
And like what it is that you owe to yourself and owe to your partner. And how do you make sure that you don't get into the same routine? Because I think that like a killer for women and killer for a sex life is to get into this mundane routine. And then we become like less attracted. And especially if we're responsive, then we're not going to be responsive to any stimuli that you're putting off. You know what I mean? So it's like
the same.
Yeah. So how do we make sure that we're staying attractive to our partner, or staying, whether it is physically or emotionally, how do we make sure that we're showing up to where our partner is still desiring us?
Well, what comes up for me is like how the appearance of your body and your health, right? Like if you stop going to the gym and you had, a defined physique early on in the relationship, and now it's just been overtaken by fat or flab or whatever, like that's not going to really improve, in my opinion, your sex life. It's like, I think there needs to be an understanding of what each other's preferences are and take that into consideration. It's not a way of forcing you to be a certain way, because ultimately you do have a choice, but also understand that there's certain things that turn someone on, right? And for in our relationship, just going to speak about our relationship, like I know that there is a certain type of body style that you find attractive on me. And for the most part of our relationship, I haven't strayed too far from that. More so recently, I have gained a little bit more weight because of the kids, and freaking like lifestyle has been crazy. But I've recognized that. I've vocalized that. You've also vocalized that. And I've really taken a deep breath when that feedback has come, because it's like, yeah, sometimes we let it go, our bodies, and then there's like a recognition of, wow, yeah, I wasn't treating that as a priority. And now it's my responsibility to get back to a reasonable space where that attraction can flow again. And I feel more confident, and you love what you're seeing, let's say, more. And now there's a better experience all around. But yeah, for you to let yourself go in a relationship, that is not good.
Yeah, that's the physical aspect, right? Of still having that desire, that attraction physically.
And that can trigger some people. Some people are like, well, it's self-love, James. Like, you got to
love your body all stages. 1,000%.
Yes. But I think there's degrees, there are like limits.
No, I know.
Yeah. And I'm not like saying that to you.
It's very normal as we get older to gain weight. Our body does change. What is it that goes down? Metabolism goes down.
Muscle
everything
shrinks. If you're not
you got to work at it harder than you did when you're younger.
You do.
It changes.
Yeah.
It really does. And like, I mean, for women, our bodies change so much, especially if you've had kids. It gets harder to maintain our muscle. Our hips get bigger. At least for me, my booty, cellulite. I've, certain stretch marks in certain areas from pregnancy. Looser skin. I mean, the appearance, I haven't done anything to crazy alter my body or appearance or anything. I know that the fad right now is like the lip injections, fillers, Botox, breast implants, liposuction, all of those things. I'm someone that really takes more of a natural approach and is very holistic. And that's something that James also values. So, we hit each other's
check each other's boxes on that.
Check each other's boxes on that, because we're both someone that I would really like to have an all natural approach and all natural appearances. And so for me, like, how can I make sure to continue to take care of myself in a holistic, natural way without doing anything to myself that doesn't make me look like myself either through all of the changes? That's something that's really mindful. And then, I mean, through my stages of pregnancy, I've been pregnant twice now, and pregnancy is really hard on your body. It's hard emotionally, it's hard physically, it's hard mentally. It's in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, why would he want to have sex with me? I'm like, especially the last month is like, oh my God, like, you don't like the way you look. It's hard. Some women love being pregnant. I didn't like being pregnant. It's hard. There's moments where I'm like, oh my God, I love this moment right now that I'm experiencing. But for the most part, it's really hard being pregnant. It's hard on your body.
I don't think you've ever felt pressure from me, especially during those times, to look a certain way. Like I was very aware of.
I was very appreciative
supporting that journey.
And like the big first pregnancy and still the second pregnancy, like, oh my God, he loves me. He likes my body. Thank God, because what would I do if he didn't?
Yeah.
But I think you see me growing our child, your child, and there's appreciation that comes into that.
Absolutely. And do I expect your body to look the way it did when we were freaking 20 years old? No.
But women do in their minds, and they put so much intense pressure on that.
They do. And that's something that needs to be discussed within that relationship, because until then, there's going to be an unnecessary amount of pressure that doesn't really need to be there if the other person doesn't need that. You know what I mean? And I don't know, I'm not here to speak for what everyone's needs and wants are, but like, I think as you get older, it's not that your standard lowers. I think your standard just broadens. You know, it's like there's certain things that are important to you, and it's less, how do I say this? It's not like it's less about the physical, because it's still important, but it's more about who you're becoming and who you are and who the other person is within the relationship. That's also equally, if not more, attractive. You know, and that's something that can never end. The body is just the flesh, but it does need to be in a reasonable appearance. Yeah. You know, and reasonable could be very different for a lot of people, and that's why you need to talk about it. But
because there could be a guy that looks hot, right? You could look hot, babe, in your body, but can just totally have let yourself go in the relationship. I should move closer to my mic. I don't know. Could totally have let yourself go, like stopped caring about our connection. Stop caring about being open with me. Stop caring to trust me with things that you share about work or whatever it may be. And I feel completely disconnected from you because you're at the gym caring about what you look like so much. You know what I mean? So there are aspects where that's why I said is the physical attraction, but then also like, what are you doing to keep up to almost make it seem like you're dating your person you're with forever? At what point do you stop courting that person? I don't think you should really ever. Maybe it's not as crazy as frequent, but you really do need to be taking that time to have intimate connection in different ways with your partner monthly. You know, whether it's going on a day date or an evening date or doing something different, going somewhere different, traveling together, trying a new experience, so many different aspects, bringing home a surprise or flowers or a gift or just being thoughtful, like
languages too.
Love languages, acts of kindness, like really knowing your partner, knowing what you like so that you can also express what it is that you need. Here we are coming back to the same foundational pillar of communication and taking that time to know yourself so that you can express to your partner what it is you need and they can express what they need, and then everyone wins. There's so many pillars. Yeah, we were like, oh, do we want to talk about love languages in this one? I mean, it's so foundational, and I feel like most people understand love languages and what they mean. If not, go type in 5lovelanguages.com. Take your test.
Right.
And most of the time, people are going to be a combination, but one more specifically, like physical physical love and physical connection. Now there might be acts of kindness, some might be gifts, like
Mhm.
words of affirmation. There's 5, right? So that's important to also bring to the table in this level of making sure that the attraction is still there.
Yeah.
Because it's tangible and intangible attraction.
Right.
The
And
energy.
the only way to truly know is to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a chance that someone could lie. True. But at least you brought up the conversation. That's what you can control. Right. And you may be listening to this episode and try some of these things, and it may result in the dissolving of a current relationship. And that's sad, and it could be bad, quote unquote, or just not feel good and on a lot of levels. And it's also you creating space for something that is in more of an alignment, and so it's a never-ending journey.
You're not going to lose if you are authentic.
Yeah.
You are not going to lose in your relationship or in life if you are authentic to yourself and if you are authentic to the people you're in relationship with.
Amen to that. That was a mic drop. Jordan Peterson said something exactly the same. He's like, when you tell the truth, you create the best possible outcome for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Because if you're in a relationship where you haven't totally been authentic and now you're at a point of feeling a little bit disconnected or like, where is this going? Or I want more. And you're truthful to your partner or the relationship you're in, you're not going to lose. It might feel painful in the moment, but you're going to be gaining something bigger in the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's in more alignment for who you are.
Yeah.
And who you are changes and evolves over time. And I can't remember where I listened to this, but it was a hot button subject of, it was someone I follow, is a doctor I follow on Instagram. I'll need to loop around and find it. Someone I told you, I was like, babe, we need to interview her on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, do not marry someone that you love. Marry someone that you have. Don't marry someone because you love them. Marry someone because you have the same values, because you can grow and evolve together, and you have mutual respect for each other. Because love is fleeting. Love is created out of emotional connection and emotional intimacy. But and passion, right? It's an emotion that is fleeting. And we all know how emotion filled we are as humans,
mm-hmm.
and how many emotions we go through on a freaking daily basis. So if you are falling in love with someone and you're all wrapped up in like that emotional side of it, but you don't look at the other aspects of that human connection, she's saying that like that relationship won't last. It won't go for as long as it could because it's on faulty foundation.
I've heard something similar where it says you want to marry someone that you can go to battle with.
Mm-hmm.
Because life in a lot of ways is a battle. You're constantly confronting unknowns that you have no idea are going to present themselves. Someone could get sick and die. Someone could become disabled. You could lose a child. You could get fired. You could lose your savings. You could a whole catastrophe, a natural disaster can come and wipe out your house. Like so many things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not partnered with someone that's in it
to weather the storm together,
like there's a reason why relationships are the number one predictor of happiness. It's because life is painful by nature. Pain, uncertainty at every corner. So to have one, hopefully one, ideally multiple friends or people in your corner that are there for you, ride or dies, you're winning.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that and you have all the money, doesn't mean anything. If you're sick, there's no one to take care of you, doesn't mean anything. If you have something good happen to you and there's no one to celebrate with, what good is it?
Yeah.
So relationships are the cornerstone of health, of happiness, of fulfillment, of a life worth living. And time energy should be spent cultivating those types of relationships. And the only way to do that is to be honest, authentic, and true to you and voice that.
That in itself is a mic drop.
I mean, it's true. It's what we've been living, you know? And I've only seen that have more positive outcomes.
The friends that I know that have been recently divorced, because I mean, we're still very young. It's because they've put things on the back burner and didn't address it, and it became a snowball effect later on, like something bigger. Or there were pieces that were hidden from them, or that they hid from themselves or hid from their partner, that came up after the fact, and being like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can get out of this unless I just end this now. And so it does come back to that level of authenticity.
Yeah.
And trust and truth. And that's why it's like so important to build that foundation of those rooted values. And yes, love is on top of that, all the beautiful sprinkles, of course, but it's going to be as a byproduct, because you have created that level of vulnerability with each other to where you do feel deep rooted connection, and that your relationship has very strong intimacy. And love will be the byproduct of it, which shouldn't be the thing that you determine whether your relationship is the one you should get married to, because love can be fleeting.
Yeah.
And love can be, of course, I love you forever. It's steadfast, but then there's moments where I'm like, oh my God, you're driving me nuts.
Oh yeah, I know this. Annoy the shit out of you all the time. But like that can only come when you love someone so much. It's like, I love you so much that I can hate you.
James annoys me every freaking morning.
Right.
And
but if
I
you
hear
didn't care
them-
that much, it wouldn't bother you that much.
No, I know.
Yeah. So, it's like, what level of spectrum what spectrum of life do you want to live, right? If you want one where you don't have much pain, then you're not going to have one with much pleasure. If you want one with a lot of pleasure, get ready for a lot of pain, because that contrast helps you appreciate the opposite. And without the pain, you wouldn't appreciate the pleasure. And without the pleasure, you wouldn't learn in the pain. And so, find someone that you can have that full spectrum with in all areas, mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually. Or else, like, you're just limiting your life experience.
So if someone's listening to this and they're like, gosh, I need to get back to, quote unquote, the way things were, like our relationship, I want to be with the person I'm with, but our relationship has like strayed away or fleeted away from what it used to be. It doesn't feel as intimate. It doesn't feel as passionate. We're not physically intimate as much as I would like. What are some things that you would suggest them to like start taking action on to kind of get back to what they feel they used to have with someone that they would deeply love and they want to be with?
Well, that can be contextual, but I think a couple things are worth stating. Since we're talking about sex, I don't think sex will ever be what it was in the beginning. With like, one, the frequency, and two, maybe the just the like head over heels type.
It won't be what it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I also think it can be better.
But not for the original ways that made it good to begin with.
Because you're young and in love. However, I think for us, over the years, we've come to really understand each other's bodies.
Yeah.
And had way better passion.
Yeah.
Than in the beginning. But we had
they're fueled by different things.
They really are. But I just want to give some context that it can be better.
Yeah.
The older you get in your relationship, yes, it's going to be playful and fun in the beginning and young and you're energetic and whatever. But it also doesn't mean that the older that you get or the longer
it's gonna be stale and boring.
No.
Right. It could still be exhilarating.
Absolutely.
There's like craftsmanship to your body and to sex.
Like you become experts
Yeah.
at each other.
Right. You're like little centimeter differences can make all the difference, you know? So, yeah. So,
I mean, and there's times where we've had to like, we're not going in the right direction during that session and be like, do we salvage this sex session or do we put this on the table and go to bed? And there's times where we've put it on the table and gone to bed and we've stopped and then like, all right, course correct, start all over.
yeah. Yeah.
Because we wanted to salvage that session and
And
end
that
on a
never
good
would have
note.
happened when we were younger.
Never.
No, we would have shamed ourselves for like 2 weeks.
You would have gone forward and I would have pretended.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why it does get better. It can get better the older that you get because your level of about to have these conversations.
I think the first thing that one could ask themselves is, where are they not being honest? And by honest, I mean, where are you not expressing the things that you want to express? Writing that down so that you can organize your thoughts. Don't just keep it in your head. Don't say, I'll remember, because, you know, you have 60,000 thoughts a day, 95% of which are the same as yesterday. And there's a lot going on. Busy days. Write it down. I have not talked about how I want to have sex in a different way. I have not talked about money. I have not talked about, you know, me settling in my life, in my career. I have not talked about me wanting kids. I have not talked about, you know, whatever the thing is on the list. Write it out first. If you have someone in your life that you can talk about these things with, like outside of your partner, if you need to like work through them, a trusted source, whether that's a therapist or a coach or a friend, I wouldn't say that would be a bad idea. I think that would be a good idea to work out like what's going on, as long as you know, again, the trust is there. And then start crossing those things off the list with your partner. Like, and you're not saying like this is your fault, right? You got to take ownership of you not vocalizing these things. And and you start by saying, here's what I've been thinking about our sex life. Here's what I've been thinking about with our future and kids. I want to just share my perspective. And I don't expect you to agree, but I just want to put it on the table.
I think one at a time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can list,
yes,
like you're saying, list it
I
all
was saying
out.
Those as like one, like,
yes,
that would be one thing.
Don't freaking problem dump.
Yeah.
In one session.
Right.
It can be very overwhelming.
And know that the other person may not know how to respond initially. And if they don't know how to respond, that is okay. Find a time where they are emotionally available in the next 1 to 3 days where you can talk about this, because it's important to you. And you want this to be a stronger relationship. And this is one way of doing that. And you go from there. There's no like framework. You got to ask this question, and then you got to sit in silence, and then you got to crack that joke so it's not too heavy. And then like, no.
Compliment sandwich.
Yeah. The only way to get good at this is to do it. Yeah. So that's that.
Do you remember the first time like you brought up, because sex is not easy to talk about. It's like pins and needles. Like most people are going to avoid it at all cost. But if the desire outweighs the pain, they're going to go for it, right? That's just anything in general. So if the desire to have a better relationship and a better sex life with your partner outweighs the pain of having a conversation, more than likely you're going to go for trying to have that conversation. Do you remember the first time like you brought up sex to me? Because it was you that initiated our talks. It's ironic. For the most part, you've initiated some of our harder talks. I've kept them going.
Yeah. I don't remember specifically what I brought up.
I think you just brought up your needs of like your physical needs.
Yeah, but I was, I think it was, I want to try.
Honestly, I believe you expressed to me, when is it appropriate to ask for sex? Because I've been needing it. Like, how long is too long? And like, you don't want to feel bad for asking for sex either.
Mm-hmm.
I think those were the first dynamics of us talking about sex.
That sounds right. And then which led into the frequency thing, which then led into the different position thing, and then the like release from your end, and then I think that's the order of how it went.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in a position where I was like, I want to have it, but I don't sense that you don't want it as bad as I do, or you don't want it as frequent. And I was like, well,
now knowing on the back end that I'm more of a responsive stimulus,
right?
You're more spontaneous.
I had to
need
warm
help.
the oven.
Oh yes, I tell James all the time, I'm an oven, babe.
You got to preheat.
I'm extra preheat.
I got to chop the veg. I got to get the saute of the garlic and the butter.
All day long. Especially now after kids and all of the things like, need help.
Yeah.
Need help. And then there's also other times where I've like responded stimulus to like having seen something or read something and been like, all right, let's go. And I initiate, which you love.
Yeah.
But then it's hard because I love when you initiate.
Right.
So it's like at what point, because I think the more masculine person in the relationship doesn't want to always have to initiate. It's nice when
it is
your partner that doesn't typically is not the initiator, does initiate and catches you off guard every
and
once
sometimes
in a while.
If someone's always initiating, it's like, I don't know if I'm like forcing this to happen, or if like sometimes when the other person initiates, it's a signal that the other person wants it just as bad as you do. Mm-hmm. That's how I looked at it.
You don't want to be needy. You don't want to like.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, I gotta initiate it again. I gotta like do this, and this. Okay, we're gonna have sex. Yes, it's good because I wanted that, but like I also sometimes don't want to have to go through that whole process too. And it's not like all the time, but I've a lot of men have actually shared that with me. They're like, I wish my wife would initiate it more. I feel like I'm always the one that has to do it. And like, I'm tired after a long day of work, and not that the women aren't either, but like they were just telling me like, it's just another thing to have to do. Like, why can we just create a moment where I don't have to do that? And it's fair,
Well, men love the routine, right? Like if you guys could come home, do your thing and have routine every day. I swear, babe, if I wasn't here in your life, you would have like egg burritos or eggs in the morning and like
burritos,
chicken and rice. I don't know, eggs something.
Definitely
eggs, and then egg tacos. I don't know.
Chicken and rice, steak,
and be fine.
Yeah,
all day long. Where I need like different meals. And things like that, where men like have the same sex, like let's say routinely 4 times a week, where women need the variety and things like that. So how can we co-create together till we've got a routine of variety? And like, what is it that, speaking from like more of like the male perspective and population, how to term that exactly, what would you like to see more from us to like create that routineness, but also variety to where you're not always having to initiate things? How can we also initiate? Like, what would be something that would be nice?
Well,
is it coming into the office and being like, get upstairs? Is it like right when you walk through the door, jumping on you? Is it like planning a spontaneous date night?
Those things would be great. But I think,
what could be one simple thing?
People have different schedules and they have different flows, right? Like I'm thinking of if I worked at an office and you sent a text to me and said, I'm ready for you when I get home or when you get home or something, and like, then my whole drive, I'm like getting excited and I'm like thinking about all these things. And as soon as I get to the door, it's like, boom, it's on. Assuming that there's maybe no kids and your life's much more simple, right? At night, when a man is like unsure if you're going to have sex or not, cues.
Like body language is huge. I feel like you don't totally go for it because my body language is off.
Well, yeah, because you look tired, and the last thing I want to like force you to do is exert X amount of energy to have a sex session. In my
defense, my natural state now is tired.
Right, which doesn't help the case. Right? So it's like, I don't want to have to put another thing on your list because I know all the things that you do. So then it's easy for me to not vocalize what I would love to experience with you because I know the heaviness of your day. And so I wrestle with that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just using my own example because that's all I can think of.
That's fine.
It's like if there's a cue that I know, like, no matter what happens, and maybe there's never like a sure-handed way because something can always pop up and we're like, well, shit, we're definitely not going to do it tonight. But more like I'm open to this. Like I'm some level of like subtle commitment to it, to having sex. I think that would help for any person.
If you're like, okay, if we haven't had sex in 2 weeks, we need to call each other out. Is that like a rule you would say?
I mean, it depends on the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I could be traveling so much that it's like, it's understood that that's not happening because of the distance.
Yes.
Right?
It's like you get hit back to back with a travel period.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming, it's a lot of different dynamics.
Easily go 3 weeks. And it's not because there's a lack of desire, it's just proximity and time, So
poor James over his birthday weekend. I swear this guy asked me every single day. So how much, where are you at in your period? I'm like, can you stop asking me about my flow? I was like, it's getting, I don't know how to, like, what word is it? Irritating, annoying, like, that's all like very heavy, but like, I'll let you know when I feel comfortable to re-engage again.
Yeah.
But you asking me every day, and I get it. I felt so bad.
Yeah. No. So yeah, I don't have any, like, again, solid strategies more outside of just when you feel it bottling, that's when you need to talk about it. Even before, but that's definitely the signal.
What about if you're starting to get back into the swing of being more physically intimate again? What are ways to do that? I guess you could say to start making sex like exciting again, or like get back into the act of sex if it's been a while.
We're big fans of including multiple senses.
Yes.
Like we blindfold sometimes. We'll put music headphones on. We'll do it in different locations.
Blindfold only ever stays on like half the time.
Yeah, but it's nice when it's on there.
You love music,
massages,
mm-hmm.
Like different locations, staycations.
We love afternoon delights.
Yeah.
Don't happen as much because there's kids in the house.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, gosh, dang it, Aiden's waking up from his nap early. You can never anticipate it.
Yeah.
And now he doesn't even take a nap. So.
But then like even like we just questions that we ask is like, is there anything that you would like to try or anything that you want to explore or
something I was listening to on a podcast that I loved was she said that a good question to bring to your relationship is, what is it that we can do that hasn't been done in a while? Or what can we do that we haven't done in a little while?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That we used to do that was fun and playful and that we miss. Because sometimes I feel like the evolution of your relationship is like going back a little bit in time and like nostalgia.
Nostalgic,
yeah. And like fantasy stuff really is like things that you used to do in the beginning or little things here and there or the romance of it all and like that eroticness of it, not necessarily like all of the crazier things that you think. Most people really just want some of that spontaneous differentness.
You know what? I think one thing that I could make as a suggestion that I've learned and that we've done is, and this comes from Tony Robbins had mentioned one time in one of his audios. He's like, I had a whole bunch of people that were having challenges in their marriage come to me on the verge of like divorce. And he was like, you're our last stop. What do you suggest that we do? He's like, go home I think it was for a week and have sex every day. And while having sex, breathe as one. And if you can, look each other in the eye, as you're doing it, not awkwardly, but like connect with them, but breathe as one. And I think he said it was a 90% success rate where, let's say 10 couples called, 9 of them decided to stay and ended up turning their marriage around, which is massive. And all it is in my, when I hear that, it's like slowing down, one
Getting
breath at a
out
time.
of your head into your body
Exactly.
together.
And because men think about performance, how long they can last, what the woman's thinking about, how they're operating, like very heady. And that causes you to lose the rhythm of the woman's body or the other person's body. You know, there's no, you're taking yourself out of the experience. It isn't until you get back into the body through the breath that you connect to the other person. And then you kind of intuitively have this dance that makes the experience so much more rich. So I think that's one thing that's like very tactical that I think would produce such an elevated experience for them. So
that's what we've tried. So I think that's a beautiful way to end and to leave.
Yeah.
On that note of, even if you've got a great thing going and you want to make it greater, do what James just explained this week. And if you're on a little bit more rocky road and you want to get back to something more smooth sailing, initiate that this week. And you don't even need to have full intercourse. Just literally be in bed naked together and breathe and stare. And I guarantee you'll feel that like connection more intimately and feel more in love with your partner. And like it just create those sparks that you've been missing again for a while.
Yeah. And there's so much that we haven't talked about. Obviously, like this is one
Just
tiny aspect
scratching the
of what we
surface.
talked about. So please send your questions. We'll address them the best that we can. But this is our attempt to get the ball rolling and to offer, you know, insights and frameworks and strategies into some things that are very hard to talk about. So thank you for being here. I love you, babe.
I love you
And till
too.
next time, peace.